Have you ever wondered if the heavens weren't some place up in the sky, but maybe a state of mind? Well, that's exactly what we're diving into today. We're going to explore the 18 heavens of the realm of form, but not as a religious map. Think of it more like a blueprint of consciousness itself, tracing the journey from this state of pure, boundless unity, all the way down into the colorful, textured world our senses experience every day.
So here's our roadmap for the journey. We're going to start at the very top, at the peak of awareness in what's called the fourth dhyana, a realm of pure oneness. Then we'll follow that thread of consciousness as it descends, creating the first doubt, then our senses, and finally, the actual world we see and touch.
Now, this quote really sets the stage for everything. See, these heavens aren't just some old mythological stories. They're directly linked to these incredibly deep meditative states, the dhyanas. And according to our source material, understanding this cosmic blueprint, well, that's the key to liberation.
Okay, let's begin. We're starting at the most profound, most subtle level you can imagine, the fourth dhyana. This is the genesis point, a state of pure, boundless awareness, way before form as we know it even starts to take shape.
Try to picture this, a single, unified consciousness. It perceives the entirety of empty space, with absolutely no boundaries, no limits. This is the heaven of infinite space. It's the absolute starting line for our whole journey, a realm of just pure, untapped potential.
So the big question is, how do you get form from something that's totally formless? Well, it all kicks off with the tiniest, most subtle impulse, a feeling of self-attachment. It's an emotion with no real object. This one little feeling causes that boundless consciousness, which the text calls the yang spirit, to begin contracting. And this contraction creates a feeling of joy. Not happiness like we think of it, but this deep, profound satisfaction of just existing. But as that contraction continues, its light can't fill the infinite void anymore. And for the very first time, darkness appears at the edges. In this table here, it just lays out that process perfectly. You can see the fourth dhyana is basically split into two phases. In those upper five heavens, the yang spirit is contracting, sure, but its light still fills all of space. Then, as it descends into the lower four heavens, that contraction gets more intense. The light starts to weaken, and darkness begins to creep in.
Now this new element of darkness, it sparks something huge. As we enter the third dhyana, this darkness triggers the very first form of suffering. And believe it or not, this one event is what sets the entire universe in motion.
So, what do you think it is? What's the first form of suffering? The source is really specific about this. It's not fear, it's not anger, it's not sadness. No, it's something way more fundamental, and it might actually surprise you. It's doubt. Yeah? Doubt. Imagine you are that sphere of light, and you're suddenly aware of a darkness you can't see into. This gives rise to this subtle, pre-verbal curiosity, like a silent, what's out there? And that simple, unspoken question becomes the engine for the next whole stage of creation.
And check this out. This slide shows the incredible chain reaction that doubt kicks off. That initial curiosity creates this inward pull, a point of density right at the center of the yang spirit, and it starts to rotate. Then, as that doubt gets stronger, turning into uneasiness and then full-on agitation, that inward pull gets more and more powerful, contracting the spirit even further as it moves down through the heavens of the third dhyana.
Okay, this brings us to a huge turning point. In the second dhyana, consciousness is agitated by the darkness. It's driven by this need to understand what's out there, and it finally decides to stop wondering and start exploring. Its attention turns outward for the very first time. The source actually calls this outward turn attention. It's this simple but incredibly profound act of choosing a direction in the darkness to go investigate. And this one act, this single choice, is the very birth of our first sense, sight.
Think about the fundamental trade-off that was just made here. By choosing to focus on the external darkness, the internal light was abandoned. And according to the text, this is the reason our eyes can only see what's outside of us, not what's inside. I mean, that's a pretty mind-blowing concept, right?
And that first choice just triggers a total domino effect. The desire to see creates an external light source, then the spirit rockets toward it at the speed of light, and this insane movement creates intense internal friction, which gives rise to the sense of warmth and cold. Finally, as that spirit collides with gases out in the void, it creates vibrations, and those vibrations become the sense of hearing.
And just like that, boom, the upper senses are born.
All right, we've arrived at the final stage of our journey outward, the first dhyana. This is where consciousness and the universe around it goes from this gaseous state into the liquid and solid forms that make up our tangible physical world.
So, as everything gets denser, the final senses pop into existence. The spirit becomes liquid, and as it bumps into other liquid forms, the sense of touch is born. Then, as solid objects form, the gas exchange happening around them gives us the sense of smell. And finally, an attachment to a smell leads to the act of eating, which creates taste. And there you have it. The sensory world is now complete.
So we've just mapped this incredible journey from boundless awareness all the way down into a world of form. But the really cool part is, now we can flip the map over. Understanding how we got here gives us a clear guide for our own inner journey, all the way back to that original state of pure awareness.
Now this slide has a key insight for anyone who meditates. Notice the huge difference here. The upper senses, sight, hearing, warmth, they don't need physical contact. That means you can keep your attention steady and highly concentrated on them. But the lower senses, touch, smell, and taste, they have to make contact, which forces your attention to jump around, making them way less stable for deep practice.
And this really brings us to the ultimate takeaway from this whole thing. Everything we perceive, every single sight, sound, and sensation, it all originates from that one initial act of turning our consciousness outward. It all started with a single moment of attention.
Which, of course, leaves us with one final, pretty provocative question. We've just mapped out the creation of an entire universe, all based on the simple act of turning our attention outward. So the real adventure, as the text suggests, begins when we learn to reverse that direction and discover the universe that's just waiting for us when we finally turn our attention back inside.